Right, nerds. I'm here with Julie Lythcott-Haims, who is running for Congress in California's 16th district. That is my home district. So I might be talking to my future representative. Welcome to the show and hello, nerds.
Hey, nerds. Hi, Tom. I'm delighted to be here. I love that I get to even pretend to be a nerd. I think of nerds as like engineers and scientists. I'm more of a social scientist, and I don't know that we use nerd to talk about social scientists, but we should, because we get as excited about social science and policy on that in that realm as more traditional nerds do about the stuff they're interested in. So I'm honored to be here and honored to have this label.
I appreciate it. And it's funny. A lot of people ask me about that term, Nerds for Humanity. And it is not meant to describe just sort of technical science, math nerds, although there are plenty of those. I think it's more around like people are just really interested in topics and like to get into the detail and nuance and really kind of get enjoyment out of the learning process, whether that be about a technology problem or a public policy problem or whatever it might be. So you're absolutely in the right place.
Good.
So why don't we start with a little bit of a background about yourself, Julie? Tell us about who you are.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I'm Julie Lythcott-Haims. I'm 56 years old. I use the pronoun she, they. I'm Black. I'm also biracial. My mother's white. My father's Black. Identify as LGBTQ. I really come to service, to public service. I'm a Palo Alto City Council member. I come to this desire to try to use my life to make the lives of others better. I think I can trace it back to being a very young child, Tom, where we were often the only Black family in town. And in the 70s, I got really awful questions. What are you? Where are you from? I had teachers not want to recognize the nerdy, brainy excellence in me because they couldn't see past my skin color or my hair. I had to fight for my spot and for my seat against the presumption that people like me were not worthy. And I think learning as a young child that some people thought that I was not deserving of opportunity or even of being treated with dignity gave me a compassion for anybody who, for reason of identity or life experience or circumstances, kind of pushed to the margins. I am somebody that wants to gather everybody in my arms and say, like, we don't succeed as humans unless we all move forward together. So that's what animates my desire to serve. I've also been a lawyer. I've been a Stanford dean. I've written nonfiction books, all in furtherance of humans thriving. And fundamentally, I believe in humans and I root for humans. I actually believe there's such a kernel of goodness and hope in most of us, if not almost all of us. And I'm really interested in like tapping into that greater desire that we all have to co-create a thriving 21st century. I'm interested in bringing that kind of audacious hope and faith in humans to Congress.
Being the 16th District of California, which includes, what we call Silicon Valley, a lot of people would say, like, why do we need a lot of empathy for that district? That district seems to have a lot of wealth and is doing just fine. When you think about this district, what are some of the issues that you're seeing that do need attention and where people do need advocacy and support and your voice?
I mean, part of what you're hitting on is what is our reputation? Silicon Valley, a place of wealth and innovation. And of course it is. The problem is it's also a place that's left a whole lot of people behind. And frankly, to just get to the point of why am I running and who am I running against? I'm running against a lot of career politicians who maybe shouldn't be so boastful about the era over which they've presided, because we've got this widening inequality. Our own kids work hard across the district in high school, go to college, what have you. They get a job, they can't afford an apartment, and that's a systems failure. And I don't think career politicians who've been leading in this region for decades are really acknowledging, they've overlooked that. So perception and reality is we've created the greatest economic engine the world has ever known, and people are prospering. And yet a whole lot of other people can't afford rent, have to live an hour and a half to 2 hours away to work in a job in Silicon Valley, then go back home to the Central Valley. It's not good or fair for them or their kids or the climate that we have these super commuters. So that's sort of addressing sort of the reputational facts versus reality. But I also want to say within the district, we're incredibly diverse. We have people in the Mountain View Mobile Home Alliance who want to talk to me about, we need a rent cap on, our annual rent for our mobile home because we're getting gouged. Who cares? Why doesn't anyone care about that? I've got people on the coast in Pacifica and Half Moon Bay and Pescadero talking about sea level rise, talking about how their infrastructure needs have been totally neglected for decades and their schools aren't as high quality as on this side of 280. And we have Silicon Valley, like the total home of the haves. And, there's a great diversity within the district is what I'm trying to say. And of course, I'm running to make sure, not just that we look after like, what do the tech companies need to give great tech to the world, but guardrails so that we don't have these terrible aftermath, like hindsight. Oh my gosh, we should have been aware of that, like with social media. Right. But I'm also trying to make sure that more people are in the conversation and have a seat at the table. That's the kind of leader I am.
Yeah, that touches on a topic I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, which is what, if anything, should be government's role in regulating artificial intelligence? What's your take on that?
Well, I think first of all, where do we start? Let me start with the narrow answer, which is what we went through with social media can give us can inform how we ought to think about regulating AI. So when the kids created Facebook and Instagram, they weren't trying to harm kids, right? They were young people trying to create a way to connect, which was awesome. And then it turns out the algorithms want to sort of feed you what you already like or know or care about. And so it can drag people down into rabbit holes if they come to Instagram, for example, unwell, particularly if they're teenage girls. What can we learn from that really terrible set of outcomes to inform how we regulate AI? I am clear. We are the home of innovation. We decide what's next here in Silicon Valley. And I don't want to stifle innovation ever. I just want the right guardrails in place. So we try to learn from our mistakes of the past. What can social teach us about AI? Let me give you an example. And I'm a writer, right? I write nonfiction. I care about copyright. I care about ownership of ideas, but I'm also interested in the free dissemination of ideas. The GDPR privacy laws in Europe are so cumbersome, right? The European Union was like, we have GDPR, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to like they have this web of regulation. And what I've learned from startup founders is it's hard to have a startup in that environment because only the biggest, most well-funded companies have the staffing capacity to read and understand and comply with the regulations. So we don't want a GDPR response that stifles innovation. We want guardrails. And I think there are terrific people right here in the Valley who are ethicists and scientists and engineers who can help us, lead this new technology forward in a way that will serve humanity rather than destroy us. And let's speak to that. Like, I am worried about deep fakes. I'm worried about implicit bias baked into the algorithm. You know what? The AI thinks doctor minus man equals nurse. And if that doesn't tell you how much work we have to do to teach the AI that, all the information they've scraped is not necessarily accurate, it's stereotype, right? We've got to get in front of that. And I trust that we have the right people here in Silicon Valley who are thinking about this constantly. I'm worried about the potential job loss of AI, but I'm also excited about how AI is lifting workers who are underperforming. It's teaching them better scripts for call centers and they become better performers. So we're in this jungle of what is AI and what are we going to do? And I don't have the answers. Who does? I have the right questions though, and a curiosity and a willingness and interest in working with the experts right here to really create something that's going to serve humanity rather than harm it.
Sounds like a very balanced approach. Appreciate that. Let's go to another hot topic, which is in the news right now, the southern border. There's record migrant encounters. There's an asylum process that takes multiple years to get an outcome. And looks like there was a bipartisan agreement, at least in Congress, that was endorsed by President Biden And now it's not going to happen due to opposition by former President Trump. If you were in the House, would you have supported that bill? Because I will say that I think Biden is getting a lot of heat from his left about that, as well as on his right about it not being enough. What's your take?
Well, yeah, I think I would have supported that bill, mostly because at this juncture, I'm really trusting Joe Biden on to navigate this issue so that he diminishes the extent to which it's become this political football. Republicans are treating immigrants with such abject inhumanity. I find it disgusting. Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis putting people on buses and on planes or whatever to blue cities, treating them like objects instead of like humans in search of a better life. I find it absolutely disgusting. And we have to call it out. Our asylum process is broken. The courts are clogged. It can take people years. I heard recently up to 10 years to have their asylum case heard. We've got to fund the asylum courts so we have more staff, more judges, so people can make their request and get sort of a reasonable time period in which it'll be heard and some kind of status, like I think they call it humanitarian parole, so that they can be here on this side of the border, working, living legally in some kind of medium status while their claim is appropriately processed. Right now, they seek asylum, then they pass into the shadows of American society, living illegally, can't leave, don't have a legal status, and they're here for years. So it's terrible. Look, fundamentally, I believe the Statute of Liberty still reflects America. Bring me your tired, huddled masses, she says, yearning to be free. Like, that's America, okay? Unless you're Native American, unless you're African American, the descendant of slaves, as I am, your people were immigrants here, okay? And we are a nation of immigrants. We have been for centuries. We will be. Immigrants do everything from pick our produce to make our software, right? We need to support folks in playing those roles. Highly skilled, out in the fields, like, all matter. So I am just, God. The Republicans fundamentally, right? It's only the southern border. They don't worry about immigrants from elsewhere. They're like, Mexico, Latin America, right? Is racism embedded in the Republican policies about immigration, and how they treat immigrants is disgusting.
I agree with that. Let's move on to another really hard topic. What to do, if anything, about the conflict between Israel and Gaza. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and there's strong opinions on both sides. What do you think should be America's role in that?
All right, Tom. Well, as a backdrop, I need to let you know that my mother-in-law is an Orthodox Jew and my children are half Jewish. And you don't typically hear that from a Black biracial person like me, but that's my truth. Okay. On October 11th, when I was simply a nonfiction writer on the Palo Alto City Council, I wrote a piece called Israel, Palestine, and Me. And I put it out on my Substack. Anyone can find it. I did not know I was running for Congress on October 11th because Anna Eshoo didn't decide she was not running until Thanksgiving. Okay, so I published a long piece sharing my anguish over what Hamas did to people in Israel on October 7th. They murdered, they butchered, they raped, they laughed. I am equally in anguish over how the Netanyahu government has chosen to respond to that. Yes, every nation attacked has the right to defend itself, but how it chooses to is really the heart of the question. The tens of thousands of innocent civilians in Gaza who have had 2,000-pound bombs rain down upon their homes, I find unconscionable, right? That we're seeing mass starvation, we're seeing disease and infection, we're seeing amputation without anesthesia. It is a human rights tragedy continuing to unfold. I'm a nerd for humanity. Let me go to the name of this podcast. My brain is capable of holding two seemingly competing truths at once. I can hold it in my brain and I can hold it in my heart. That is to find both situations atrocious. And I am calling for a bilateral humanitarian ceasefire. I worry that if we do not say bilateral, who's checking Hamas to make sure they don't come back and commit another round of atrocities? We can't let that happen. We also must stop, not only stop what's happening to innocents in Gaza, but we need billions of dollars brought in from the world community to rebuild the Gazan way of life, to rebuild these communities. Homes have been destroyed. A huge swath of people have nowhere to live. So we have a terrible crisis. And frankly, it is not solved with violence. It is solved with a truth and reconciliation process, whether you go back to 1948 or 47, or you go back a couple centuries, or you go back a couple millennia. This is fundamentally a land dispute with people who have claims to this land, and each side feels they are legitimately retaliating to the unorthodox actions of the other. And when each side feels that way, you can't go back to the original sin. You can't unravel it all and figure out who was the first bad actor. Okay, we don't have that as a possibility. So we need leaders with moral courage who people respect from around the world, like Rwanda. The Rwandan genocide, Hutu, Tutsi, devastating. Somehow they figured out a truth and reconciliation process that has set them on a path to being a strong economic force in East Africa. Like, let's learn from the Rwandans. Let's learn from South Africa post-apartheid, right? America has a role to play, but we haven't even sorted out our own original sin, genocide against Native Americans and enslavement of Africans. Like, we don't have all the moral authority as Americans. We should play a role. We are Israel's biggest ally. And I believe we should be Israel's ally, because we know Israel exists because the Holocaust slaughtered 6 million Jewish people in gas chambers. And oh, by the way, the US did not receive refugees from that burgeoning crisis before it happened. So we became the country that said we will stand up for the right of Jews to have a safe place. And I believe they need a safe place. They're some of the most persecuted people on the planet. I just don't want them to be so self-defending that they are killing tens of thousands of Gazans. Okay? It is an issue on which I am passionate. And I want you to know this is not a political issue for me. I don't have sound bites. I have my head and my heart yearning for a humanitarian solution and a rebuilding, 2 states living side by side in peace, 2 peoples with self-determination and the opportunity to live in safety and security and peace. And as a leader, I will fight for that as passionately as I have been able to fight for anything.
So, Julie, let me play devil's advocate.
Tom, hold space for a second. Just hold space for a second. Like, I just shared some really, like, I'm not the one suffering. I'm an American here. I'm living in Silicon Valley. But the anguish here is so big, and I feel it. All right, go on with your question.
It was a follow-up question to this same topic.
I know, but
and I
for humanity, touching the for humanity aspect of
I hear you.
Program.
So when I've discussed this with friends who are on different sides of this argument, the friends who are very strong advocates for the Netanyahu strategy have said to me, well, we'll have a ceasefire as soon as all the hostages are released. And until then, there will be no discussion of a ceasefire. And then I asked them, like, well, at what point? Like, what if the Hamas never release the hostages? Like, will you just bomb them for like the next 6 months? Like, what's going to be left of that place? What is your take on America's enablement of the Netanyahu strategy? There are funds and material that might originate from the U.S. that are enabling the current Netanyahu response. I feel very culpable that my tax dollars are going to that.
Tom, Thanks for getting real and keeping it real. As a sitting city council member, I hear in public comment people in anguish express this very view every Monday night. And I also hear people in anguish on the air quotes other side expressing a different viewpoint. And so I am very aware of the arguments. And what's interesting being on the dais as one of 7 on the Palo Alto City Council, the speakers come up and they speak to us at a microphone, and I can see everyone behind them. And what kills me is, for example, when a Jewish woman stands up and speaks about the atrocities, the hostages, the ways in which the Jewish community is scared, can't wear the Star of David, even here in Silicon Valley, feeling afraid. And I watch her anguish, and behind her, I can see somebody holding up a sign that talks about Zionism or about Netanyahu or about, occupied Palestine. And the look on their face is like rolling their eyes. And they can't, right? They don't realize I'm looking at the anguish face and then I'm looking at their face right behind. Then the opposite happens. The person comes up and is pro-Palestine and talks about the atrocities committed against people in Gaza. And the person sitting behind them is holding up the sign about the hostages and rolling their eyes. And I want to say, y'all, I'm looking at both of you at once. If you could turn to each other, express your own fear, and express some compassion for the fact that the other people have also been through some shit, we would make progress. To your question, America's enablement, I sort of started to allude to this, and thank you for bringing me back because I got off track. We are Israel's biggest ally. We send $38 billion over 10 years in military aid. I think allies give money, and allies act with diplomacy, and allies tell allies tough truths. Israel needs America's support. We have tremendous diplomatic leverage. And Joe Biden ought to be pulling Bibi Netanyahu aside on a regular basis and saying, this is not working any longer. Whatever efficacy there was, you have exceeded it. You are now you have created a generation that will want to avenge the killing of their families. This is not pro-peace. You are not securing Israel's peace by behaving this way. I mean, the Likud Netanyahu government in Israel, right wing, like there's so many Israelis who are not supportive of that government, just like there's so many Americans who are not supportive of Trump. And yet atrocities are being committed in the name of Israel by the Netanyahu government. I do worry about America's enablement. As you put it, I would say we must use our dollars, the leverage of our dollars, to secure the right diplomatic response.
Thanks, Julie. I know that's a hard topic, and it's easy to be comfortable here in Palo Alto watching this from afar, and forget that I think it's up to 30,000, close to 30,000, maybe 25,000 people have died in Gaza, and then of course you've got over 1,000 people in Israel that were killed in one day. I appreciate your context and sharing your thoughts on that one.
I mean, I think if it were simple, Tom, like if you had all the answers, or I had all the answers, or the collective nerds here in Silicon Valley had all the answers, we would be king and queen of the world, and we'd be in these glistening robes, and it'd be like the 22nd century, but we're not there yet, right? I am not a scholar of Middle Eastern history. Okay. Neither are you, as far as I know. Right. So we are civilians in this context. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Palestinian. So I'm not personally, feeling like my people, but I'm near people, my family. Right. I am doing my best to learn and listen. And I've got people wanting me only to listen to their side, but the hostages, yes, the hostages, I'm in anguish, and the butchering, yes. Right. And I have the people, but what's happening to the children of Gaza? Like Hamas was justified. Like, I'm in anguish over the children, but let's never say that the butchering of human beings is justified, or people should dance or laugh. Like, we have to be able to acknowledge when our own side in our pain has overshot. right? We have to be able to say, like, Israelis were deeply scared and afraid and had to respond, but then Netanyahu overshot. And we have to say that the Palestinians are in anguish over being kicked out in 1948, and they've been trying to get their land back, but Hamas overshot. Like, you do not butcher a person and claim any moral high ground. Frankly, we need more women leaders. Women tend to be less violent, more peace-seeking. I don't know why. Anthropologists might say it's because life comes through us, and we might see all children as our children in some ways. So here I am, like, getting in tears talking on Nerds for Humanity, because, you know, it is a hard set of facts that we humans are contending with right now. These are hard times, not just in Israel and Gaza, but right here in the United States with our reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy being eroded. These are hard times. And that is why I'm stepping up to serve.
What would be your top priorities, Julie, if you were our congressperson? What would you focus your energy on?
Tom, I got a little visual analogy. See if it works for you. I think there's like the person drowning in the river, and it's on all of us to, like, drop your bags and jump in the river and save the person if you can. And then when you realize there's more than that one person, there's a lot of people falling in the river, you know, you save them, but then you go upriver and ask, why are so many people jumping in, falling in, or being pushed in the river? Like, why do we have people drowning in the river is the systemic, longer term set of questions that have to be addressed. And I think we have both the urgent people in the river, and we have the systemic people upriver, falling in, jumping in, getting pushed in. So urgent, I do feel that the codification of Roe versus Wade is an urgent issue. Women are being told that their government has a role to play in determining what happens to their body. This woman in Ohio who had a miscarriage, you know, of a fetus in her home and disposed of this tissue was charged with manslaughter, right? The cruelty of that government decision. I mean, she was ultimately, you know, it was dismissed or she was acquitted, what have you. But, like, in the moment, like, she had a miscarriage, tried to take care of this tragic, disgusting situation. Disgusting because, I mean, like, a fetus comes out of your body. You don't think that's a gruesome thing to look at, right? And then she's charged with manslaughter. Like, this is Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale coming to life in Texas, in Ohio, in Florida, not here in California, we hope. Okay, we have to codify Roe. We have to say that abortion is the law of the land. 60% of Americans are in favor of it. We just happen to have a Senate where every state gets 2 votes, even if they only have 800,000 people, right? We have a Senate that disproportionately represents the small states. And it's, anyway, so codify Roe. Immediate climate action. We don't have long before this climate has warmed to a point of inhospitality to life. So urgent climate action, more federal dollars. The Inflation Reduction Act has been great on that. More dollars given to support renewable energy, clean energy, more incentives for the corporations to switch to renewables, job training for all the people that do fossil fuels work, you know, cap and trade, sequester it. We have so many different ways we have to solve climate. But the biggest thing is the narrative to the American people to get them on track. People have to change their transportation choices, how they cook, how they heat their water, and how they heat their homes. In order for that to happen, because it is more expensive unless we have the right rebates in place and the subsidies, which we're going to need to not leave anyone behind. We need a narrative that is like, come on, y'all, it's us against the warming planet. We need everybody on board we need, like, the right words. We need the right public service announcements. I'm 56. When I was little, it was give a hoot, don't pollute. It was an owl that said, stop littering. And we did, you know, and only you can prevent forest fires, Smokey the Bear said. And we believed him, right? We need a clean, clear, crisp message that invites Americans to be a part of saving us all, as opposed to the authoritarian message of don't listen to science. It's not caused by human action. Like, they're preying on fear and uncertainty to build their authoritarianism. We have to be about freedom and optimism and hope. And, like, look how smart and thoughtful we are. When we all pull together, we can save us all. Like, I'm running to contribute to that narrative. So climate, reproductive rights, and I think guns. I don't think enough older people realize that 25-year-olds and younger were the first in America to have active shooter drills at their kindergarten and their fourth grade and their eighth grade and their 12th grade. We routinely subject our young in America to active shooter drills. Hey kids, an armed gunman might come and try to shoot you in school. So we're going to pretend that for a moment and you have to hide. Like, come on, America, what the hell? Okay. We all took to the streets in 1999 when Columbine was shot up by two of its own students. And I found people and you found people. We're like, did you hear? Did you read this atrocity? Can you believe it? Our poor kids, this will never happen again, we said, to become the only nation where it routinely happens. I don't think enough politicians realize, and frankly, a lot of the guys I'm running against aren't parents. So maybe they just don't even have the perspective of youth. But I've got a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old, and I know their generation has had to deal with mental health challenges, in part climate, right? Their future is compromised, in part guns. They've had to prepare for shooters to show up throughout their childhood. Don't think that hasn't had an impact on their mental health. I'm the candidate who gets it. So assault weapons ban, universal background check, safe storage laws, red flag laws. Like, the places with more gun laws have fewer gun deaths, like California. Okay, those are my urgent things.
Yeah, on that last one, I'll just share an interesting, somewhat sad reflection of what you were just talking about. So I have a kid in high school at Pali. They had a lockdown, I don't know, a couple months ago, because there was a person walking around with a gun. And when he came back from school, I said, oh my God, I heard today the school was locked down. Like, what was that like? And he was kind of numb to it. He was like, yeah, that's, we prepare for that. And I'm like thinking, wow, like, we prepare for fire drills when I was in high school.
Right.
But the fact that he thought like, well, this is just normal is kind of crazy.
That's what I'm trying to say, Tom. I think it is their normal. They don't know that America wasn't like this before them. They just think this is the way it is. They probably don't appreciate that it doesn't happen in other countries. This is such a moral failing for us. Somehow we've let a comma in the Second Amendment dictate policy in the 21st century. And I would love to like go back in time and ask the founders, like, you have to stuff powder into a gun, like one bullet at a time, right? And now we've got automatic weapons that can kill 100 people in a minute. And if you want to tell me that the founding fathers, with all their flaws around slavery, right, number one, like around women, number two, like with all their flaws, I still don't believe they intended to found a country that would have rampant gun violence where civilians could come after each other with automatic weapons. It's just stupid as an ideology. So, hey, look, I'm going to take on the gun lobby and there's plenty of people that want to. It's another one of those issues where the majority of Americans want sensible laws, but we have a system, this bicameral legislature with the Senate deeply steeped in red state, small state values. They choose our judges. I mean, the Electoral College, don't get me started on the system. Man, there's a lot of systemic brokenness in our democracy. And I really do think that the stakes are higher than they have been in, since the Civil War.
We have, we're about up on time, Julie, but I did have one question from the live chat.
Please.
From Sue Bowman. She was curious do you support, or you have a position on universal basic income?
I sure do, Sue. Thanks for being here, number one. Number two, thanks for asking an important question. Michael Tubbs, who was the mayor of Stockton, who piloted a universal basic income program there, was my student at Stanford back in the day. And I watched him come as a first generation college student, become a leader on our campus, become mayor of Stockton. And UBI is it's a great concept. I actually write about it in my newest book, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult, which is to support young adults in thriving in their adulthood. And I talk about innovative ideas like pulling methane out of the air by feeding cows healthier algae. And I talk about universal basic income as a way to provide a greater quality of life for more people. So, and look, they do it in Alaska. They just call it their oil and gas dividend, but they give every Alaska resident a lot of money every year. And they don't call it a handout because they're a Republican state. They're like, we've all earned a piece of this and we shall have it. Well, that's what universal basic income is too. So very excited about that as a way to redress the cost of living. Right now we have salary and wages down here and the cost of rent up here. And we've got to go like this: more housing to bring the cost of housing down and a better base of dollars in people's pockets, right? So the cost of living and income are more aligned. So, yep, very excited to see that come about. Really excited about pilots. Would love to know if you've got a great idea, shoot it to me over at info@julie.vote. If you've got something, Sue, that I should know about when it comes to UBI so that I'm more conversant in the topic, please let me know.
Love it. I would love to see a UBI program funded by a carbon tax. Then we could kind of address two issues concurrently.
I mean, that's nice. We also need carbon tax to fund, more of a transition to renewables. But yes, I mean, there's need to be found. I think, the wealthy need to pay their fair share. We have a very regressive income tax. It's time to ensure that the wealthy the super wealthy aren't sort of getting away with stuff. We really do need them in this democracy to spend a little bit more income toward taxation so that we can have the municipal stuff we need. Look, let's talk Prop 13 some other time, Tom. We need split roll, right? Prop 13 was designed to protect the elderly from being priced out of their home, which I agree with, but corporations have been taking advantage of it, right? They're not going to get priced out of their home. We need split roll on Prop 13. Why? So the community that created all of this economic value can actually fund asphalt and road repair and electric lines and schools and affordable housing and, grade separation. Like, come on. We have been starved of the very receipts that this prosperous California should have yielded to the municipalities, right? This is a Henry George argument. He's an economist from the late 1800s. Like, call me a Georgian, let's get real, y'all. We need systemic solutions.
Well, thanks so much for coming on to the show, Julie. And I know you'll be joining us in the Nerds for Humanity Candidate Forum on Feb 25th, as a few other candidates will from the district. So it'll be a great conversation, I'm sure. Before we wrap up, any other messages, or where can people find out more about you or potentially volunteer or pitch in?
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Tom. I really enjoy what you're up to and really grateful you put this out there on Twitter. And, I'm going to say yes, because I like to show up and learn and participate. My campaign is www.julie.vote. Okay. We have a longer one, but the julie.vote is easier to remember. So go there. We want you to learn what I'm about. We want you to sign up to volunteer. Click that in the top right. Donate if you can. I'm running against guys, most of whom have taken corporate PAC money and lobbyist money, and I haven't, and I won't. No oil and gas money, no corporate money, okay? I got a grassroots campaign here, so I don't need all the money they have, but I need enough to get my message out to the voters. The last thing that I want to say, Tom, is every generation was told that they would have it better than the last in America, and that was true until the millennials arrived. And then people started saying, what's wrong with the millennials? Why are they still living at home? Why can't they? And the answer is rent was out of range for them. Their salary is here and rent is here, and that ain't their fault. So I am in this for our youth. As a mom, I'm in this saying, we have to restore the American promise to its youth. You will be able to thrive in your adulthood. Climate, reproductive rights, bodily autonomy, guns, housing, cost of living, healthcare. It is our job to put these things in place so that you, like us, can earn a living, fall in love, be in community, enjoy your life, make a difference for others. Like, that's the promise that needs to be restored for our youth. I'm the candidate running, not for myself or my ego or my sense of I've earned this, but no, I am a voice of compassion about the change necessary to give our youth a better future.
Julie Lythcott-Haims, thanks for coming to the Nerd Zone, and we'll see you in a few weeks for the panel discussion.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you. And thanks to everyone who listened.
Take care. Bye. All right. Yeah, Sue, I was about to say the same thing. This kind of California 16 series that I've been doing now, we've had Rishi, we've had Greg Tanaka, we've had Joby, and now we've had Julie. And they're so different, each of them. Greg's definitely like the tech nerd, very apropos for Silicon Valley. Rishi's maybe more the tech industry professional who also has a pretty good track record in Saratoga on the city council there, although Greg has been on the Palo Alto City Council, so that's great. We've had Evan Lowe. I think Evan probably maybe comes across as the most seasoned local candidate. He's been in the game for a while, even though he's pretty young. And Joby is for sure the green candidate. And I think Julie, maybe she has a bit of a Bernie Sanders vibe in a great way. It'll be hard for the district to choose. Now, people in the district, or just people who are interested in Silicon Valley's congressional race, since it is the first open race we've had, in like 30 years, and see all of the CA-16 candidates in a couple places. One is you can go to OTP of the people.us, and then you click this filter, CA-16. You can filter by approval votes. You got Evan Lowe, Rishi, Greg. Amed is coming on the show. Joby we've had on the show. Julie we've had on the show. Still trying to get Sam Liccardo, Joe Simitian, Peter Otaki, and Peter Dixon to say yes. But, in a weird way, that is a signal, like how accessible are our candidates. So very much appreciate Evan, Rishi, Greg, Amed, Joby, and Julie for coming on to the show. And Sam, Joe, Peter, and Peter, invitation remains open for you to come on anytime you want. If you liked Julie a lot and you're like, hey, I want to give her an approval vote, you can just click on her profile, click approve. You can write a review. In fact, maybe I will do that right now while I'm working on it. I'm going to stop sharing just so I can log in. And okay, now I'm logged in. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let's filter by CA-16. And we can go to Julie here. I've already given her my approval, but I'm going to write a review of her, and I'll say, I think Julie is the Bernie candidate of CA-16. She has passion, compassion, wants to speak for the less represented and encourage everyone to solve the urgent problems and go upstream to address root causes. There you go. And then you hit submit, and so join me. I'll keep an eye out on that profile to see if you guys write any reviews or have any thoughts. But yeah, definitely very impressed. The last time Evan came in, he didn't have his policies up on his website. Yeah, that's true. Let's see, maybe if he's got it on now. The thing about Evan, he's got like a kind of a bigger name. But let's see. By now, he should have them on here. So luckily, OTP links to their website right over here. I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to share. So now we're on Evan's site. He's got priorities. Okay, so yeah, there's some more details here. And I'm guessing, Stu, maybe let's see about UBI, maybe cost of living. I don't think I see UBI here. And then what about climate? If there's a carbon tax, right? Yeah. Well, but those. There's his. He does have a policy section now. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you all think of. If you've. Oh, I also have a playlist. Let me show you guys. I got a playlist. Let me pull it up. Switch out there. I'm gonna go to playlist. So if you go, look at this. You guys will love this. I put together a playlist for all my CA-16 interviews. So if you wanted to do a marathon, you could see Evan's interview, Rishi's interview, Greg's, Joby's, Julie's. Amed is coming up, and then the panel discussion will also be on. I'll add that shortly. Hopefully people find that useful. If you know anyone that lives in Northern California and Silicon Valley, point them to OTP, the playlist, and any of my one-on-one interviews, just so they can find it as a resource. This channel exists partly because we have channel members, so I need to give special thanks to all of them. We're going to start with our highest level, and then we'll work our way down. So, first, Soldier One, our biggest member. He is a senior vice president. Thank you, Soldier One. Next, at the VP level, we have Kristen Slevin. Oh, Kristen changed her avatar. And Bike. She's been a member for 49 months. Bike, 39 months. Thank you, Kristen and Bike. Next level down is Hardcore. Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Mr. History, Mona, Von, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Parent, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Mickey, Yoda, and Nkiyu. And if you're wondering how to become a member, just click the join link on YouTube under Nerds for Humanity. And the money basically goes to the software that I'm using to stream this live stream, as well as the hosting costs for the audio podcast. If you like audio podcasts, don't forget to subscribe there as well, wherever you listen to podcasts. Our verified nerds are only $1.99 a month, and they are here on the screen. I'm just going to scroll through them, but I will give one special shout out to Sue, who is in the live stream, and I think Sue is our youngest nerd across all of our levels. Let me see here. Yeah, so we're going to say total time as member. Stu Bowman, 2 days. And next young ones are Alice, Lantern, and Cindy. And our oldest members are Lisa, Jean, Kristen, and Brandon. So thanks to all of you nerds for coming on. And if you can't join, do me another solid and just like this stream and share it out. And then comment below on what you think of Julie. Would you vote for her if you were in my district? Should I vote for her? Let me know what you think. I'll look out for your comments. Bye, nerds.